Hello everyone, FPL Raptor here and welcome back to another video on my YouTube channel. It has finally arrived. It is the week of the Game Week 1 deadline, and in today's video, I'm taking a look at the best team that you can possibly build according to artificial intelligence. If you are enjoying the daily uploads on this channel, please do remember to like, make sure to subscribe as well. But without further ado, let's jump into it. So guys, before we jump into looking at the team, I did just want to address a few comments that I've received in pre-season about the introduction of artificial intelligence to FPL. A few people think that it's ruining FPL or it's making it too easy. A few people say that what's the point in even playing FPL if you're just going to rely on a robot or AI to make your decisions for you. That is not what I'm advocating, and I would hope that no one else is advocating that either. All this is an additional tool to add to your arsenal. I would never recommend relying on one tool to make your decisions. We call that the law of instrument bias in psychology. We spoke about that recently on the channel. You do not want to over-rely on one tool. I would never make decisions just according to an AI team rating. Equally, I would never make decisions just according to eye test, or just according to underlying data, or just according to touch maps, or just listening to my favorite content creator. You try and use every single tool that you've got available to you, combine them, and then make your own decision based on that. So I never will advocate just using a team rating to make your decisions. But it adds an additional layer of fun for me at least, and I know for a lot of other people as well. I like the fact that when I've got a draft, I get that draft, and then I go over to Fantasy Football Hub and I get a team rating for it. It makes it exciting for me to see what that eventual number is. But I'm certainly not over-relying on it, and I don't advocate that you do that either. That being said, today's video is around the AI. If you don't like that, then this probably isn't the video for you. But this is just a bit of an idea about the AI over at Fantasy Football Hub and what they believe the best team is for you. If you want to get your team rated for free by the AI, there is a link in the description down below. And if you also want to get access to like underlying data, touch maps, some different articles written by some other content creators, all of that stuff, you can get access to Fantasy Football Hub for 50% off at the moment. That is the second link in the description. I am partnered with Fantasy Football Hub this season, as you guys will know, but I do genuinely really like the My Team feature, and I've been using it throughout to get my team rating for pretty much every single draft that I've created. So this team is rated at 100% because, of course, it is the best team according to the AI, and it's predicted to get 69.2 points in Game Week 1. If you're wondering sort of what the outlook is for this team is predicted to be the best team that you can possibly build according to the AI over the first 5 game weeks. So it's not looking beyond 5 game weeks, and it's also not just looking at the first game week, but it does also weight more highly to the most immediate week. So game week 1 is more important than game week 5 for this team. So it's really looking at game week 1, but it's also looking over a 5 game week horizon. Hopefully that does make it clear. It's a very strong team. It is slightly template in points, but they also differ in a few points as well. They are lining up in a 3-5-2. That was actually a very recent change. So the points projections are constantly being updated by the algorithm. And actually, very recently, as little as yesterday, it was actually a 3-4-3 with Darwin in there. But Darwin has since come out, and they've actually snuck an extra midfielder in, which we'll discuss when we move on to the midfield. One place where this draft differs a lot to what I've seen from other content creators and drafts on Twitter is it has double Manchester City defence. I'll be honest, I absolutely love this. Man City across the last 2 seasons have comfortably been the best defence in the league for expected goals conceded. I do believe they will keep the most clean sheets in the Premier League this season. And it looks increasingly more difficult to nail a good City attacker that's going to start most games. We've of course got Erling Haaland. Is KDB going to be fit enough to start the season? We don't know. Alvarez will probably get good minutes, but is he going to start every game? I highly doubt it. Foden looks like a continued rotation risk after being benched in the Community Shield. Jack Grealish looks relatively nailed, but his goal threat is so low, I feel like there are potentially better midfielders to choose. So when you put all that together, are you ever really potentially going to want a second City attacker? Maybe not. And if that's the case, Ederson and Stones are about as nailed on as you can get for City defence, especially Ederson. We would expect him to continue to start instead of Ortega. And you're covering the best defence in the league with the best fixtures in the league as well. So I actually really like the double City defence. I'm still a little bit sceptical about Ederson just because he doesn't really make enough saves. But if you can get over that and you think he'll get enough clean sheets to still justify picking him, I think Ederson could be an excellent shout. And to double up with Stones, if City keep a clean sheet in game week 1, you're going to be absolutely laughing there with the double clean sheet. Interestingly, still on the goalkeepers here, they've got Jason Steele on the bench. So they've actually gone for a 5.5 keeper in Ederson and a 4.5 keeper on the bench. I guess the AI doesn't worry about benching headaches because they don't think like a human being, right? It's an algorithm based on a variety of different things. So they're not thinking, hang on a second, I've got Ederson against Burnley and Steele against Luton, who do I play? They are thinking about purely optimizing points. And I guess if you've got the money in the bank to do so, after picking Ederson, who they project to get the most points pretty much every week. Picking another goalkeeper with really good points projections in Jason Steele probably makes a lot of sense. So they've gone for Ederson and Steele, and as I said, they've got John Stones in there as well. The other two defenders in the starting 11 are very, very template. I'm not going to go through them in tons of details. They've both got great fixtures, Estepinian and Gabriel. I've got both of these in my draft as well. I can't really see myself not going into Gameweek 1 with both Estepinian and Gabriel. So I feel like I don't need to discuss those loads. I think at 5 million, they are excellent picks, and I think most of us will probably have them in our drafts. On the bench, their £4 million defender at the moment is Baldock. He's got the highest points projections of all of the £4 million defenders. If he continues to start, I do think he is the best £4 million defender. It's just whether you do think he will get enough starts, because I feel like maybe someone like a Kabore, a Bell, or a Bayer, they might be slightly more nailed on £4 million defenders. But I feel like if Baldock gets the starts, for me, is the most attacking, and I really like him as an option. And then the 4.5 that they've chosen is actually Pinnock. They rate the Brentford defence fairly highly here, and Pinnock does have greater goal threat than Henry. Not quite as good as Ben Mee, but of course he is cheaper than Ben Mee. So I feel like if you're going for the greatest goal threat at 4.5 from that Brentford defence, then it is going to be Pinnock, and I don't mind that as a shout at all. So I guess a relatively template defence in comparison to what you've seen. However, the double City defence is really nice, and the idea of also covering the bench with a decent bench keeper as well is really nice. And I suppose this does mean that if you do want to play the bench boost before your first wildcard, you've already got a decent substitute keeper. You've already got Pinnock and Baldock there. As you can see, when we move on to the forwards, you've actually got a playing forward in Adebayo too. So the bench is not necessarily set up for a Game Week 1 bench boost, but it's already got a few price points there that you wouldn't mind bench boosting it if you want to play an early one. So that's the defense. Let's move on to the midfield. So moving on to the midfield, and yes, it looks fairly template at a glance, but there are a few things to discuss in this midfield about how the AI thinks you should structure it. Firstly, Bruno Fernandes and Marcus Rashford. I'll discuss this in my own team selection. I'm going back and forth on who I think is the better midfielder, and at the moment I'm really struggling to the extent that in my own draft, I also have Bruno Fernandes and Marcus Rashford. Almost because I'm finding it so difficult to choose one. It tells me that I do still think that both are excellent. Bruno Fernandes is playing a much deeper role at the moment, and Marcus Rashford is probably going to continue as the number 9 until Højlund comes into the starting 11. I just think that Bruno Fernandes is set for a massive season, and he looks so good in pre-season. That doesn't necessarily mean he'll be a good FPL asset, but he is on penalties. His data last season was about a 0.7 XGI. He's on some set pieces, and he just looks really good. And I know looking good isn't always the best, but as I say, I use a variety of tools. Eye test is one of them, and Bruno is definitely passing the eye test. Yes, he's a little bit deeper than I would like, and yes, at the moment at least, it looks like Mason Mount is slightly further forward. I don't always feel like being higher up the pitch is necessarily going to make you a better asset. Bruno Fernandes will still get a ton of assists from that deep position. So maybe Marcus Rashford is the better FPL asset if you're looking at more standard, who's going to get you more goals. But I still feel like Bruno Fernandes is worth 8.5. Interestingly, on Bruno and Rashford, according to the AI, they are actually projected to get more points than any of the Arsenal midfielders. So Marcus Rashford projected to get 6.5 points and Bruno Fernandes 6.2 points in Game Week 1. And over the first 5 to 6 weeks, both Manchester United players, like I said, are predicted to get more points than any of the other Arsenal midfielders. So if you are looking at who to favour, maybe you've got already, let's say you've already got Rashford and Saka, and you're looking at that third spot, one of like a Martinelli, Ødegaard, Fernandes, the AI would suggest that Fernandes has the highest projected points. I do think it's pretty close though. So after the two Manchester United assets, they do still have Bukayo Saka. He is projected to get the most points out of all of the Arsenal midfielders, but it is pretty close between all three of the popular ones. Ødegaard and Martinelli aren't far off. And interestingly, and this is where the AI differs to a lot of content creators' opinions, Ødegaard is projected to get more points than Martinelli. So if you are looking to double up on the Arsenal midfield, purely I think this is due to expected minutes, because Martinelli actually has slightly better data than Ødegaard. Ødegaard is projected to get more points. And I feel like that is a mega differential in and amongst the more engaged managers. I know Ødegaard's sitting at about a 20% ownership, but in and around the people that watch content and are on Twitter and are really engaging, I don't think Ødegaard will be very highly owned. So if you do want to mix it up, and you want safety of minutes as well, because Ødegaard's not going to get dropped, I do really like the idea of an Ødegaard and Saka double up. But this draft currently only has two Arsenal assets. They're not going to have, obviously, Gabriel Jesus. This is it. Saka and Gabriel. They've left that third Arsenal spot open. Again, I'll discuss this in my own team selection video later in the week. I like the idea of leaving the third Arsenal spot open. The reason for that is as soon as Gabriel Jesus is back, there's a good chance you'll want him. We don't really know how many minutes Martinelli's going to get. We think he's nailed, but we'll have to wait and see on that one. Who he's going to play in the number 9 role? Havertz started the game in the number 9 role in the Community Shield. Nketiah then came on and Havertz was pushed a little bit deeper. Trossard came on and looked good, but Trossard actually came on for Martinelli. So we don't actually know who's playing where. There's a little bit up in the air at Arsenal. And it may well be that you actually decide to bring in someone like a Saliba or a Timber and go for a double Arsenal defence. So yes, I think Arsenal are fantastic to own assets from, but going for a double Arsenal rather than a triple, I don't think is the end of the world, especially when you look at how strong this midfield is. The other thing I like about this midfield is it does have two £6.5 million midfielders. In my own draft, I only have one £6.5 million midfielder, and I'm really struggling to choose. I like the idea of having two, and they've actually chosen Mbeumo and Matoma. Both projected to get over 5 points in game week 1, 5.5 and 5.3. So they're looking like they'll have a really strong game week. And of course, both playing at home as well. And I should say the entire midfield are playing at home, which is really nice, especially in game week 1, where you want all the advantage that you can get. And usually teams tend to perform better at home. I would love to know down below in the comments, who is your favourite £6.5 million midfielder? Feel free to rank them down below. I didn't actually realise until a couple of days ago there are 10 midfielders ranked at 6.5. I feel like the main four that people are choosing between is Matoma, Mbeumo, Eze and Diaby. I feel like if you're choosing, it's probably one of those four. But there are some other nice options such as a Mudryk. You could even go for a Barnes or Almiron if you want to go against the fixtures. But I feel like it is probably one or two of those four. In my own draft, like I said, I've only got the one 6.5. But I do like the idea of getting two into your team. And at the moment, the two projected to get the highest points is Matoma and Mbeumo. I think that if I were to order them at the moment, spoiler alert for tomorrow's video, because we're going to talk about the £6.5 million midfielders in more detail, I would still put Mbeumo and Eze at the top, just because I really do like the penalties. But I also feel like Matoma and Diaby, despite not being on pens, have that explosive nature about them. And I could see them doing really well. Matoma, especially with the fixtures, I think they're absolutely excellent. I just think there's going to be continued rotation for Brighton. They've even made a new signing. Is it Kudus? I feel like there's just going to be so much rotation in that starting 11 that even Matoma, who's the most nailed Brighton attacker, I still feel like he could get reduced minutes. Even if it's not necessarily starting from the bench, I feel like he could come off around 70, 80 minutes. So for me, probably like Mbeumo, Eze, Matoma, Diaby is how I would probably rank the four of them. But according to the AI, this isn't my team selection, this is the AI's team selection. Mbeumo is the best, Matoma is the second best, then it's Eze, then it's Diaby. So they do rank Matoma and Mbeumo as the best two. That's the midfield five. Let's move on to the front two and discuss the bench as well. So moving on to the forwards, of course, Erling Haaland is in there. We don't need to discuss him in a lot of detail. Second to Haaland, 4 points projections, as we'll discuss in tomorrow's video, which is the Game Week preview video. By the way, that is going to be the most useful video that you watch this week on my channel, will be the video tomorrow, which will be a Game Week preview video. So do make sure you subscribe. Please do that on the road to 80,000. And also check out tomorrow's video because I go through the points projections. I'll go through the best 6.5s. I'll go through Liverpool assets, Foden. We'll discuss all of that stuff. Kane is actually second to Haaland for points projections. So he is very high. I still feel like even if Kane does stay, though, just due to the price points and where you have to sacrifice elsewhere, I don't think Kane would ever make his way into an AI 11 because it would mean you end up dropping the likes of Fernandes and Rashford, who, as I said, have really, really high points projections. So Kane is projected to do well, but obviously Erling Haaland better. The surprise, probably the biggest surprise about this team, because I do feel like double City defense is quite different, and maybe having two 6.5s is different, and maybe having Jason Steele is slightly different too. But the real big inclusion in this is Callum Wilson, and let me tell you, the AI love Callum Wilson. His points projections are by far and away the best of the forwards outside of Haaland and Kane. Exceptionally good data last season for Callum Wilson. He should be on penalties when he's on the pitch. My major issue with him is twofold. Number one, I don't think he's nailed, unfortunately. We've seen that in pre-season. We saw that last season as well. I do not feel like Wilson will start every game. Yes, Wilson and Isak can start together, but the signing of Harvey Barnes tells me that they don't necessarily want to start Isak regularly on the left. Otherwise, they wouldn't have signed Harvey Barnes. They would have just continued. They would have signed a real backup, because realistically, Harvey Barnes is expecting to get into the starting 11, I would assume. They probably would have signed, a backup and then played Isak on the left and Wilson through the middle. I know both Isak and Wilson are injury prone, so it may be that Harvey Barnes was signed as almost a bit more rotation. But I just feel like with Barnes, Almiron, Wilson, Isak, I just feel like there are too many options for that starting 11. And I don't think Wilson's going to get enough minutes to compete with the like of an Ollie Watkins. Ollie Watkins' data isn't as good. He may not still be on penalties, and he's certainly not as good at taking penalties. But he is so very nailed that it's probably worth still going for him, in my opinion at least, instead of Wilson. But I just want to let you know, the AI rate Wilson very highly. And the player that, like I said, Darwin was in this 11 until yesterday. So I'd created the graphic, I'd done everything. It didn't have Matoma in, no, sorry, it didn't have Mbermo in there, I believe. It had Matoma, didn't have Mbermo. And then recently, Mbermo's come in and Darwin has dropped out. So this was very nearly a 3-4-3 with Darwin instead of Mbermo. And all they did to fund that was they just dropped a couple of the bench players down to fund it. So it's a really nice team. As I said, Adebayo is third sub. Adebayo is 5 million. He's probably the most likely £5 million forward to get good minutes. I feel like I would almost be willing to just drop him to a 4.5 though. Considering you've got Pinnock and Baldock already, I don't feel like you also need Adebayo. The other option you've got, if I was going to change this team, is I would probably change Callum Wilson. I don't think I would have him personally. I'd probably go for an Ollie Watkins in that spot if I wanted that price point. And then what I would do personally, and I'm not the AI, is I would drop Still down to a £4 million keeper, maybe Turner if he gets his move to Nottingham Forest, and then I would upgrade Adebayo to João Pedro. Yes, that would create a benching headache, but in game week 1, if you don't really fancy the fixture for Mbermo could be first sub. You could chuck João Pedro in. João Pedro looks like he'll be on penalties. I'm very tempted to get him into my own draft as well. And I feel like if you're going to have a bench and you want to rotate and you want to have a little bit of depth, João Pedro is definitely worth the extra 0.5 on top of Adebayo. But I feel like this is a really strong team. I wouldn't necessarily rate it 100%. I feel like it's maybe missing a little bit. And like I said, I'm not sure about some of the bench options and also Wilson, but it's definitely above 95%. Like I said, if you do want to get your team rated for free, first link in the description, you could do that. And if you want to go beyond and support me, second link in the description, you can sign up as a paid member. I think it's £3 per month, gives you access to pretty much everything because you get 50% off at the moment. Usually it would be £6 a month. So you might as well do it during pre-season whilst the discount is still going. But yeah, 100%. Let me know down below in the comments what you think of the AI's team. So guys, there you have it. That is the best team for Game Week 1 according to the AI. It is updating every day with its points projections. So if you do or are a paying member for Fantasy Football Hub and you want to see the team in the future, go over and check it out. And it will probably update right up until the Game Week 1 deadline. If you have enjoyed today's video and you're enjoying the daily content here on this channel, please do drop a like. And like I said, please do make sure to subscribe as well. We are on the road to 80,000 subscribers. I don't think we'll get there before Game Week 1, but that would be a really nice surprise. Until next time, thank you very much for watching. Cheers. Bye-bye.